Hello everyone, welcome back to Remind, knowledge sharing channel self-development through good books. This week, I want to share with you an incredibly valuable book.
Today, we are going to talk about one of the most powerful and heartbreaking classics in world literature, The Sorrows of Young Werther, by the great German writer Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. This short epistolary novel, written in less than a month in 1774, caused an absolute sensation across Europe when it was published. It sparked a cultural phenomenon known as Werther Fever, inspired fashion trends, and tragically, even a wave of copycat suicides among young people who identified deeply with the protagonist's despair. More than 250 years later, the book is still being reprinted, translated, and studied all over the world because its core message remains painfully relevant. The only person who can truly imprison you is yourself, the birth of a masterpiece from personal pain. In October 1772, Goethe, then a young man of 23, received devastating news. His close friend, Karl Wilhelm Jerusalem, had taken his own life with a pistol after suffering from unrequited love in a series of humiliating experiences. Goethe was shaken not only by the sudden loss of his friend, but also by how eerily similar Jerusalem's emotional torment was to his own recent experience. Goethe himself had fallen desperately in love with a beautiful young woman named Charlotte, Lotte in the novel, who was already engaged to another man, Albert. Like Werther in the story, Goethe had to watch the woman he adored marry someone else. Though he eventually let go and moved on, the pain lingered. 2 years later, on a cold autumn day, Goethe visited Jerusalem's grave. Standing among the tombstones in the chilly wind, he felt as if the souls of the dead were rising around him. In that moment of profound despair and empathy, the idea for the novel was born. He returned home and, in a feverish burst of creativity that lasted less than 4 weeks, poured all of his own heartache and his friend's tragedy into the character of Werther. The result was a raw, passionate, and devastatingly honest portrayal of a young man destroyed by his own emotions. Part 1. You imprison yourself with illusions. The story follows Werther, a sensitive, artistic, and idealistic young man from a well-to-do family. Disgusted with the artificiality and corruption of urban society, he moves to a picturesque rural town, hoping to find peace among simple, honest country folk and the beauty of nature. For a while he is happy. He draws, reads Homer, plays with children, and feels at home. Then at a village dance, he meets Lotte, a radiant, kind-hearted, and beautiful young woman. From the moment their eyes meet, Werther is completely enchanted. He dances with her, tells her stories, and sees in her smile and sparkling eyes the promise of perfect love. In his mind, he is already certain she is his soulmate. But then comes the thunderbolt. As the evening ends, Lotte casually mentions, almost as an afterthought, "By the way, I should tell you I'm engaged. His name is Albert." Werther is stunned, as if the sky has fallen on his head. In the days that follow, he tries to keep his distance, but he cannot escape the illusions spinning in his mind. Instead of accepting reality, he begins to analyze every tiny detail of their interactions, twisting them to fit the story he wants to believe. "When we danced, she pressed my hand more warmly than she did with others. When her carriage passed by, only she leaned out and looked at me, several times. That sad, tender look she gave while caring for the sick old woman in the village. It must have been for me." He convinces himself that Lotte loves him, but cannot admit it because of her promise to Albert. He dreams of passionate embraces, of marriage, of growing old together. Even after Lotte marries Albert, Werther clings to the fantasy that she is unhappy, that she secretly longs for him. Why do we do this? Why do we build such elaborate illusions? The deepest reason is simple. We fall in love not just with another person, but with what they represent, what we feel we lack inside ourselves. Lotte is warm, nurturing, cheerful even in storms, always caring for others. Werther, on the other hand, is moody, self-absorbed, and emotionally unstable. He is drawn to her light because his own inner world feels dark and empty. As modern psychology would later explain, and as the book Intimate Relationships points out, we are often attracted to people who possess the qualities we wish we had. Their strengths highlight our perceived weaknesses. We don't just love them, we want to complete ourselves through them. But here is the danger. When love becomes a desperate attempt to fill an inner void rather than a genuine connection with another human being, illusions are inevitable. Instead of seeing the other person clearly, we see only the projection of our own needs and desires. Werther refuses to accept that Lotte is happy with Albert, that she loves her fiancé honestly and faithfully. To accept that would force him to face his own inadequacy and loneliness. So he escapes into fantasy, and the more he escapes, the tighter the chains of illusion bind him. The first lesson is clear. Stop imprisoning yourself with romantic illusions. Ask yourself honestly, am I loving this person for who they truly are, or for what I hope they can give me? When the relationship becomes painful or impossible, why do I cling so desperately? What emptiness inside me am I trying to fill? Only by accepting your own imperfections, your limits, your needs, your fears, can you begin to love in a healthy, mature way. Only then can you stop building prisons out of daydreams. Part 2, the more you run, the tighter the chains become. After Lotte's marriage, Werther's suffering becomes unbearable. His friend Wilhelm urges him to leave the village and find work, anything to distract himself. With help, Werther secures a minor clerical position at the court of a local count, but running away does not heal him. At his new job, everything irritates him. His boss is strict and critical, constantly returning his reports with corrections. A female colleague brags about her family's status, which Werther knows is exaggerated, and he despises her. He feels out of place among the shallow aristocracy. Instead of focusing on his duties, he complains endlessly. He curses his colleagues, his boss, the entire system. Finally, in a fit of frustration, he writes an impulsive, overly long letter directly to the count, complaining about everything and everyone that disturbs his peace. The result? Disaster. The count, offended, begins treating him coldly and deliberately humiliating him in front of others. Werther's work suffers even more. His depression deepens. This is the second prison we build for ourselves. Using work or any external change as an escape from inner pain. There are two common patterns. 1, some people throw themselves into work frantically, ignoring health and emotions until they burn out. 2, others, like Werther, let their unresolved pain poison everything they do. They see enemies and injustices everywhere, never realizing that the true source of their misery is inside themselves. As Antoine de Saint-Exupéry would later write in The Little Prince, it is much harder to judge oneself than to judge others. We blame the boss, the colleagues, the environment, but rarely do we look in the mirror. Changing jobs, cities, or relationships will never solve the problem if the problem is you refusing to face your own emotions. Pain is part of life, but only by looking at it directly, acknowledging it, feeling it, understanding it, can we ever heal and move forward. When you work with full presence and responsibility. When you feel pain, feel it fully instead of running. Only then can you break free from the self-made prison of avoidance. Part 3. Inner conflict will eventually drown you. After several humiliating months, Werther finally quits, or is essentially forced out, and returns to the village he once loved. At first, nature brings him comfort. He rides through green valleys, walks among wildflowers, and feels a momentary lightness. But soon every path, every stream, every tree reminds him of Lotte. The memories flood back uncontrollably. One evening he visits her home. She receives him kindly and begins playing a cheerful piece on the piano, the very same melody she played the first night they met. The joy of the music contrasts so violently with his inner torment that he bursts into tears and flees into the night. Now everything collapses at once. The pain of unrequited love, the shame from his failed job, the guilt of disappointing his mother and friends, the sense of being utterly worthless. Even Albert's friend, who once admired him, now says there is no cure for him anymore. On the morning of December 21st, 1771, just days before Christmas, Werther writes a final letter to Lotte, borrows pistols from Albert under a pretext, and shoots himself. Was it only unrequited love that killed him? No, love was just the trigger. The real cause was the unbearable contradiction within himself that he could never resolve. He claimed to love the simple rural life, yet he mocked the villagers for their lack of ambition. He dreamed of being a great artist, yet he rarely painted, because painting would have required discipline in confronting his own mediocrity. He despised the shallow aristocracy, yet deep down he desperately craved their approval and admiration. He wanted to be seen as noble and unique, yet his self-worth depended entirely on how others looked at him. Werther could never decide who he truly was or what he truly wanted. He floated between ideals without ever committing to one path and giving it his all. Unlike Lotte, who lived simply and authentically, caring for the sick when needed, dancing when happy, faithful to her duties, Werther was torn apart by his own inner conflicts. He knew in rare moments of clarity what he should do. At one point, he even writes to himself, "You cannot keep tormenting yourself over things you cannot have. Let the past go with the wind. Be grateful for what is here now." But the moment he stopped observing himself objectively and returned to feeling, desire, and memory dragged him back into the swamp. In the end, he imprisoned himself completely inside his own heart and chose death as the only escape. Final lesson: the only way out is radical honesty with yourself. The tragedy of Werther leaves us with a profound and timeless warning. The only person who can truly lock you in a prison is you, through your illusions, your avoidance, and your inner contradictions. If you want to live freely and peacefully, 1. In love, ask yourself, am I loving this person or am I trying to fill a hole inside me? 2. In relationships with others, ask, am I living for myself or to satisfy their expectations and admiration? 3. In work and life direction, then ask, am I doing this because I truly choose it or to escape something else? 4. Above all, have the courage to look honestly at the conflicts and fears within you. Face them, accept them. Only then can they lose their power over you. Only when we stop running, stop fantasizing, and stop living for the gaze of others can we finally return to our true selves. Only then can we live fully in the present, let go of the pains of the past, and find genuine peace. May we all, in the years we have left, carry a clear, honest, and serene heart, so that we may face life's sorrows without being destroyed by them, and live peacefully as who we really are. Thank you for reading this far. If this story touched you, share it with someone who might need to hear it today. Werther's pain has echoed through centuries because, in some way, it is all of ours. Let us learn from him, not to follow his ending, but to choose a different, braver path, the path of truth, acceptance, and authentic living.